Wait, can I just make my bed? I forgot. You can see behind.
Hello and welcome to the 16th episode of Sound On. After slightly more serious past two episodes, we are back with something that everyone can closely relate to. For this episode, we intend to discuss areas such as leaving friends in the past behind, adapting to new environments, changing as individuals, and taking control of our lives. The final point of taking control of our lives is an even more important stage of adulthood, I should say, in the circumstances we currently find ourselves in due to the coronavirus, because a lot of us are now forced to reevaluate our past, present, and future. It is our hope that this week's episode will be especially wide ranging on these issues. We are very pleased to have a University of Sheffield alumni joining us today, and that person is Samuel. So Mel and I are now both back and filming in Sheffield. So thank you, Sam, for joining us at a rather late time in Malaysia. So could you briefly introduce yourself to our listeners before we get cracking with the topic?
Sure. My name is Samuel. So I'm from the same uni as Melissa and Chris. So I just graduated from the University of Sheffield with a degree in software engineering.
All right. Thank you, Sam, for telling us about yourself to our listeners. Mel and I have known you for about 3 years now, I suppose. So nothing's really new with regard to what you actually do. But for our listeners' purposes, thank you very much for that. So let's start talking about the different stages of life. So, which is leaving school and leaving university, for example, because institutions of learning dominate our lives from childhood to our early adulthood, and it also dominates some people's lives, especially if they only start furthering their studies later on in life. Like some people actually, further their studies when they are probably a lot older than us right now. But anyway, so let's talk about leaving school. So would you want to start, Mel? Like, how did you cope with leaving school since, it played such a big role in our lives?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think my school changed me a lot. I feel like when I was in school, I was still quite immature. I think the stage of life that I really changed a lot is probably in uni, because that is when like I'm really alone and I really, I really like take control of my own life. But yeah, going back to leaving school, I think the biggest change for me would be my friends, because I think in school, like I think even in college actually, like we see our friends every single day, and yeah, and we just like we have a group of friends and all that. But then right now, when we are in uni, we have to make a certain effort to meet up with our friends, and even when we meet up, it may not be the same. We don't have our everyday activities to just like talk about and click on. So yeah, I think that is the biggest change that I see from school until now. And although I say that I miss high school a lot, I really don't see myself going back there, because I just feel like I see the world very differently now, where for example, like there are so many rules in school that I feel like at this point it's like really unnecessary. Like for example, you have to tuck in your shirt. Like what difference does that make to you as an individual? So yeah, I think that is how I view school right now. Like it was it's a nice phase of my life, but I just wouldn't want to go back. But yeah, how about like university for you guys?
Would you want to go first, Samuel? Like, you could start from whether did school in any way shape the character that you are today, or was it more of like university?
I think for me, right, it's more of uni. Like uni was more life-changing for me. Cause like I remember like coming into uni, it was a very big thing for me. Cause you're totally independent, right? I mean, coming into uni was definitely it's not easy lah. I remember coming I remember the first week I was there, right? Like I literally knew no one, so like I was just there like okay, I'm here, so what should I do now?
Yeah,
Then
same.
like yeah, I still remember like the first week, right? Like I felt so lonely. Although I had a friend like who came with me, but I felt so lonely, right? I remember like this thought going through my mind, like, ah, shit, why didn't I just study, in Monash or something? Yeah. Um, I think the independence is not a very big thing, right? Cause like it's things that you need to learn how to do, and it's just more tasks that you have to do. So I mean, like, you learn to be more appreciative in that sense. But I think for me, what was more groundbreaking or more influential was learning to meet new people, right? Because like, we come from Malaysia, like transitioning into college was okay for me because like I already knew people, and like, relatively speaking, right, Malaysians get along quite quickly because you're from the same cultures, you're from the same backgrounds. But like, to put it very frankly, like coming into UK and like learning how to mix with white people was very hard for me, like, because like the frequencies, your interests are so different, right? So I think that was what I've learned, to diversify myself in that sense. Yeah.
So do you feel like because you studied overseas, you matured a lot faster? Or do you think that, it's just like uni in general, where wherever you study, it'll probably be the same?
I think in general, uni, wherever you study, it matures you. But I think for me specifically, it was staying away from home. So like being independent, totally independent in itself. I think that made the biggest difference for me.
I see. Yeah. I think I can totally relate with that because even now, like I'm in my third year of uni, right, and I've been in Sheffield for more than 2 years now. I still feel like I haven't really like fully integrated into like the international community and all that. Again, like I'm of course a lot more comfortable around Malaysians because, like you said, like we click so easily, and if you're in KL, right, you confirm have like one or two mutual friends at least, and that is the conversation started. Like oh, how do you know this person? Blah blah. But then if it's like from someone like halfway across the world, like what do you even talk about, right? Maybe like the first day you can talk about the difference in culture, the weather, or whatever. But then like
Yeah.
on day two, like okay, like what do you talk about? So yeah, I think that has been really tough for me, and I really resonate with that. And even until now, even like the way I talk, I feel like I can't talk normally when I'm around international people because I feel like they don't understand my Malaysian accent. So yeah, it is quite difficult. But I think maybe after a while, maybe after a few more years, it's something we get used to. I'm not sure, but yeah. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, for me, actually, I think school contributed a lot to who I am in a certain way. Like, not perhaps in my worldview or I should say, my skills or whatever, or something, anything similar to that. But I think in terms of like my character, for example, like, my mannerisms, the way I communicate with people, the way I approach people, school definitely played a very, very big part in that. For example, like, I learned to discover my strengths and weaknesses while I was at school. And it does seem like as if I was it was a process basically. So before college, like school was actually where I realized that, what, I'll probably be doing a degree that is not science based because I was in the science stream in school, for example. So in that way, school shaped me, it shaped my character. But I think that looking back at, if you compare right now in university and in school, I do think that for the future, for example, in the next 3-4 years, for example, I think university is probably going to be more important to me, the part that university played, because I think that I will leave university next year, probably a lot more mature, my views, my horizons being broadened, for instance, widened. So in that regard, yeah. But I do think that I do agree with what Mel actually said, because your point about how you feel like being an international student, and including Sam as well, like being an international student, it was difficult to basically um, integrate in university. I did find difficulties in that regard, but I think that I will leave university as I would say I satisfactorily integrated, I suppose, and because I have made friends from lots of different kinds of people over here in university. So in that regard, I think that will really help in careers in the future. But I just want to touch a little bit further about this point then about school and university, because I think one of the biggest issues that we probably want to discuss today is basically taking control of our lives. So for the both of you, like any one of you who wants to go first, when did you actually start to feel that you had control over your lives? Was it in school? Was it at school or at university, or only after university? Or do we feel that even after leaving university, we won't really have control of our lives yet?
Sam, you want to go first?
You can go first.
Okay, I think weirdly enough, right? I think I remember this specific I don't know why. Okay, I don't know. I just remember this specific moment when I was in Form 3 and I was like climbing the stairs in my school with my desk mate at that time, my friend. And I think that was the moment. I know it sounds really weird, but like that is the moment that I remember that okay, I feel like I'm in control in my life now. Where like I feel like previously, like from 2 downwards, I feel like I was just, going with the flow, like okay, like my parents asked me to go to this school, then I go to this school, and all that. But then like I think upper secondary school was when I really knew what I was doing and I was more conscious of my decisions. And I think it just increased as I grew older and older. Like leaving school, you have to decide what college you want to go to, and I decided to go to MCKL, and then in uni I decided to come to Uni of Sheffield. And yeah, I think from then on, especially when I entered uni, it's just like making your own decisions all the way. Like even coming back to UK for my 3rd year, like my parents were so against it. I mean, given like okay, the cases are really bad here, and like I really wanted to come back. So yeah, I feel like these are the kinds of decisions that I don't really rely on my parents anymore, even though I am still dependent on them, like financially and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Basically, for me, right, I would say not really taking control of my life per se, lah. But I think like being more independent, like in uni, like definitely changed a lot. I feel like back in college, back in high school, right, it was very like what I did was very objective, right? Like, cause like there was like a laid out plan for me already. Like if you think about it, cause I have 2 sisters, right, and both of them also studied in the same school, both of them studied in the same college, right, and both of them did A level. So not saying I didn't really have a choice in where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, that kind of thing, but it was a very laid out plan. Like, oh, once you graduate from high school, you're going to A levels because your sister did that. Oh, and it worked, right? Like and like if it's broke, if it isn't broke, like why fix it, that kind of thing. I think that was what was going through my parents' thought of mine. But yeah, so like it was very objective from my standpoint, like cause like, oh, you go to school, you study, right, then you go to college, right, you get your A's or you study hard and apply to UCAS, that sort of thing, right. And yeah, I would say it's very objective in that sense. But then like when I came to uni, I would say I started to have more freedom, like cause you need to learn how to think for yourself, right? Like where do I want my career to be in the next 3 years? What I want to do, like with whatever that I have now. I think that's when I took control of my life. But more of like, there are more initiatives that come from myself, like what I want to do. Should I do this or not? Because like this is a very stupid example, right? But like back in high school or whatever, even if it's using my own money, or in college also using my own money, if I want to buy something, right? Like if I want to buy something that costs a few $100s, right? There's this stigma in my mind that actually I should ask my dad first, like, oh, can I buy this, that sort of thing. But like, in uni you go, you're just like, F it lah, like like
Yeah.
I'll just do it, like, yeah. So that's what my response would be. Yeah.
I think we can also talk about, since we have Sam here who already graduated, so we can talk about like the transition of leaving university. Like how has it been? Has it been like very different, or like like no difference?
Yeah, but basically, how have you been coping with that, with the changes in life, basically? Now that you probably already now have a different sort of routine. So I think I'm aware that you've done a lot of like placements, internships and all that, but right now it's like you don't have to return to studying anymore, but rather it's just, you can leave studying behind right now basically, and you can start going to work now. So has it been a big change? Have you been adapting well?
Yeah, I think there's not that much of a change for me because like it's the same I guess. Like if you ask me, right, working is the same as uni, just that you have more responsibilities, and like you're responsible of your own financial your own financial status, that sort of thing. And I think I'm lucky that I don't have to move out like some other people who move from like other states into KL to find a job, that kind of thing. Like all I need to do is go to work, come back, have dinner, and then I don't have so many financial burdens, right? So I don't think it's that it's played that big of a part for me. But the biggest thing that I struggle is learning to be more financially responsible in that sense, right? Cause like you looking at it like in the future, like you can't spend as much money as you can, right? Cause like back in UK or whatever, like I got work also, right? Like so I did part-time jobs or whatever. But back then was just like, oh, every month I have this amount of money. Okay, what can I buy with this amount of money?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So but when you start working, then like you start to think about the future kind of thing. And yeah, you just want to be more financially responsible cause you're very independent now already, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very good point because about what you said about being financially independent. I think all of us probably, in some ways, we always struggle with that. I think like even right now, when at least for me, when I have a certain amount of money being given to me to spend each month, I do at times struggle to keep within that budget. Even though more often than not, I usually do have some savings, for example. But I think in the future, me leaving that that situation where I always have a set amount of money to spend would be very difficult right now, because like right now I'm just like taking notes, like how much I spend, for example. So I calculate by the end of every week to ensure that I have enough money. But I don't think that I'll be probably able to do that once we start working, because like it's quite, I don't know, it seems to be like quite juvenile to basically every week how much money you have. You get what I mean? But I mean, in terms of like taking control, right? I mean, for me, I feel like there is probably a slight difference between me and you guys in the sense that I do feel that I had quite a high degree of control, at least not on things that parents like to control, for example. So parents like to control, for example, what time their kids go back, what activities their kids do. Well, obviously, I still have those controls in Malaysia, but in terms of what I wanted to do in school, like, for example, choosing whether I wanted to go to the art stream or science stream, that choice was completely mine. I chose to go to the science stream on my own, despite my mom telling me that, perhaps you should consider something else. And then choosing my university and my course and all that. In terms of all those kind of things, I've had a lot of control. I often consult with my parents on these points, but I've had a lot of control in that. But in terms of things like money, the way I live, basically, I'm actually still reliant on my parents in that. So in that sense, I think that will be something that's going to be quite hard for me to change in the future, even though I find it a bit irritating that I do not have that independence. But I think it's more of like, it's easier to say that you really want to do it, you really want to be independent financially and stuff like that. But when you actually reach that situation, I think it could be quite a pain to actually change your lifestyle, don't you think? So yeah.
Yeah. I think if I can add, right, I forgot to mention one thing about uni just now. So I feel like one thing that I really like about uni is the freedom as well, which I don't have in Malaysia, even when I go back now, because I can't drive, so I can't go like anywhere I want to and all that. So I think getting used to the freedom here in the UK really like changed my mindset a lot, because before entering uni, right, like why do I need freedom? There's nothing I need to do, right? But when I came to uni, I really appreciated like the freedom that I got, and just knowing when I can go out and buy my own groceries and something like that, which I really miss when I am back in Malaysia during the summer. But yeah, I just wanted to touch a bit about what Sam said about internships and working, right? Because like for me, like I've had internships before, but I feel like it's different because I know that if I don't like what I do there, I'm gonna chow in like 2 or 3 months. So I don't have the pressure of like, having to like fully integrate into the space and having like a good reputation or whatever. So like, how has it been like, entering? Oh, I think you haven't like started like working like a full-time proper job yet, right? But like, how do you think it's gonna be like really different?
I think I'm not the best person to answer this because I'm going back to a firm where I've worked in before. So, but I get what you mean. Like, which I think is a really big problem. Like if you ask me nowadays, because I hear people who start their jobs, right, and like 2 weeks, oh, my supervisor sucks. I'll change company, that sort of thing. Sounds very luxurious, but like, it's not like. I think it's a really big problem within our generation per se. I feel that if you ask me honestly, right, as long as you know roughly what you want to do with the skill sets that you have, like when you start, right, like there's no right or wrong. Like there's no right or wrong answer. because like going in as a fresh graduate, right, you have to understand that you are a dumbass, like you know nothing. Yeah, like as much as you learned in uni or whatever, right, like unless you're going into research or academics, right, but what I think is that whatever you learn in uni is negligent, right, with regards to whatever role that you start, because like in whatever role that you do, you still need to learn some stuff. You still need to upskill yourself and learn new stuff, right? But like the stuff you learn in that specific role, right, won't cover all the other stuff that you need to learn from other roles. So like it's like telling you have 10 apples to pick, but then you can only pick 3 now. So like whichever 3 you can pick, just go for it, right? And then like then you can switch careers or change career paths or change jobs later on. Yeah. So I don't think there's right or wrong answer. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's an excellent point, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. If that answers your question, yeah.
I think that's a really excellent point because, I mean, a lot of us, even in university, for example, I think in our generation, a lot of us are very used to voicing out on a lot of things. We can complain about this and that, for example, but I've not gone for I've gone for internships before, but I've not really worked. But I think I've always had this belief that when we work or when we are in an intern, for example, we might dislike the things that we are told to do. We might dislike the thing that our superiors tell us to do, for example. But I think it's quite important for us to basically like hold our nose and just, for example, like if it's doable, just do it, because it is part of the learning process. I think we would reach a stage in which we'll be able to voice out what we feel about these things. And yeah, I mean, it is a time in which people probably find it a bit difficult to like get a job and all that. And for us, for people to basically just very simply basically like hop around, it seems very luxurious, and not everybody has that luxury. So we should really like consider what we do, I guess. But I think now that we've discussed this on a more serious note already on like careers and basically jobs and university education and all that, let's go to something a little bit more personal or more fun, I should say, which is a point on like outgrowing and being distant with friends, I think. So let's go into the topic of friends right now. So one of the points that I think Mel wrote when we planned this was basically, her question was, do you feel like you have less genuine friends as you grow older, or do you suddenly feel that you're more distant from childhood friends? And so is that distance explainable? Like, what do you guys think? You can go first, Mel.
Yeah, so I don't think that I have less genuine friends now in uni. Maybe after I leave uni, maybe that will be the case. I don't know. But for now, I think everything is chill and all that, because it's like friends in uni lah, like nothing much lah. It's not like in a workplace where you have like things you can say, things you can't say, and all that. So yeah, in terms of like friends in uni, right? I do think that because so right now I'm living with my friends, right, as my flatmates. So what I think is really different was that if your friends, right, for example, your high school friends or your college friends or even your uni friends that you don't live with, it's like, you can meet up and you can just like chill, have dinner, and talk about things that you enjoy about and all that. But what I realized when I moved in with my friends was that there are things that you have to talk about that are maybe uncomfortable, like if you're settling bills and all that. And that is, I think, one part of adulting that I realized, like like when you have to confront someone like, why didn't you throw the trash or something, like even though it sounds like something like lame, right, but it is something that you have to do. So yeah, in terms of childhood friends, I don't think like that I'm more distant from them, but I do feel like I have to put in effort to maintain the friendship, like I have to like take the time out to go out and meet them, because they are not people that you meet every day by coincidence, like in school and all that. So yeah, and there was one point of time during the MCO, during the lockdown, where I felt like I was the one putting in all of the effort into keeping in touch with people, right? And that was like my emo phase. But I think like I'm okay lah. Like different people have different ways of like keeping in touch with friends, and maybe some of your friends they don't like take the effort to text you, but that doesn't mean that you don't matter to them. So since we've talked a bit about career, a bit about internship and all that, so for someone who has already graduated from university, I think it's very good that we can have someone with that perspective, because usually, all of our guests are like uni students. So yeah, so Sam, do you feel like now that you've graduated, do you feel like you know what you want to do for the rest of your life, like discover your career path?
I think for me, it's not exactly I know what I want to do, but like as in like I'm okay with where I am now. The rationale behind, okay, so to give you a bit of context is that I come from a software engineering background, right? So like I do a lot of, like in uni I did a lot of programming, computer science, that sort of stuff.
Those things, yeah.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make here is that programming itself is not a subject matter. Programming is a skill set, right? Technology is not a subject matter. Technology is a skill set. Technology is a medium, right? So for me itself, I want to find specific subject matters that I'm interested in. So like things like fintech, things like e-commerce, like oil and gas, that's how industries are specifically. So I think what I can do for my career now, right, is to utilize what I have and try to gain as much experience as possible. So like which is why I'm going into consultancy, more specifically tech consultancy, because that's a techno-functional role, right? So I don't just get I don't just get the technical side of programming stuff, but also the functional side, the more business oriented side, right? And I guess that works for me because like when you're in consultancy, right, you work across with different clients, right? So different clients, different teams, different projects, that sort of thing. So like in consultancy, there's a lot of talk about finding your team model. So what's your team model is that like, when you go into your job, right, you try to get as much exposure so that that's your horizontal. And once you have been exposed to so many things and you know what you like and what you don't like, then you go into your vertical, right? So like then you specialize. So I think that's for me specifically. And I think why techno-functional roles work for me is also because then you are a bridge between two different areas, right? So, and that's how you create value for yourself, like going into your career, right? That's your USP, your unique selling point. Yeah. So, yeah, for me, it's more of exposing myself to different things. But I think it's easier for me to say because I know I want to work in tech, right? I know I want to work with technology. Yeah. So in that sense, I know what I want to do, but that question is still very open-ended, right? It's a very, very broad thing. There's so many things you can do with tech. Yeah. So not sure if it answers your question, but yeah. I don't believe in like 3-year plan, okay lah, maybe 3-year plan. Yeah, but like 5-year plan, stuff like that, I don't believe in that. Like, cause like everything is changing, everything is evolving, Yeah. So I go into interviews telling them I don't have a 5-year plan. Yeah.
Okay. So do you feel like, is it accurate to say that right now you are still in your exploring phase, and when do you think that you will achieve your vertical, and are you like in a rush to achieve it, or are you like, chill?
Yeah, or are you just like basically kind of like chill with like basically letting life take its course, or do you actually intend to basically determine what's going to happen? Because some people have, like for me, I'm more of like let life take its course kind of person. Like, obviously, I'll try to make myself skilled in certain areas. For example, I try to like take internship opportunities whenever I can, for instance, so that I can basically like try to take control of my life. But I'm kind of like, I'm also not really worried about say where I'm going to be 5 years from now, for example. So where do you consider yourself at basically?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Like the main question that I'm supposed to answer.
I think the main question is like, are you currently still exploring, and are you in a rush to achieve your vertical?
Or basically, are you just like letting life take its course?
Okay. Yeah, definitely still exploring, right? Because I think there's so much that I don't know, so I don't want to specialize in anything yet. Yeah, most of it. Like if you ask me, right, I don't have like it's not a goal or it's not a benchmark for me to in 5 years I want to be the subject matter expert for this industry or like whatever lah. I would say I still take it pretty chill. Like if you ask me what's my career goal, is that like by the time I reach 30, I want to be earning 5 figures a month. Yeah, which like that's an indication of success to me already, because like as long as like I'm earning that much in 30, which I think is very, very realistic, like just in general, not just for me but like for everyone, right? It's quite a low benchmark, but like but just in general, I feel like if I can earn a substantial amount by the time I'm there and I'm happy with what I'm doing, right, like that's good enough for me. Obviously there are goals lah. There are more goals to it, right? Like I want to find my own startup. Like I want to build my own startup. Like, but like it's not. I feel like building my own startup is not a realistic career goal, because like I don't have a specific problem that I'm passionate enough to solve yet. So like when it comes up. But yeah, for me itself, like I like. It is not very specific, like, oh, like I want to be a subject matter expert in 5 years, but like more of like if I'm where I want to be by the time I'm 30, then yeah, sure, let's go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, okay, so for me, right, I feel like I'm in my 3rd year. I feel still like quite fetus to answer this question, because I really don't know, like, I really don't know what I want to do, because I feel like I want to do research, but the problem is I don't know what is actually like being in research, because like in 1st and 2nd year, whatever we do in the lab, right, it's written in the book. They just tell you put A into B, then you do it. So it's not really research. And for my 3rd year, we are supposed to be given a proper research project, which I'm working on now, but we still don't have the lab experience because of the pandemic, right? So for me, yeah, I think I am still quite unsure. And if you ask me like whether I'm in a rush to really find out what I want to do, I think I kind of am, because I feel like I like routine and I like comfort. So I feel like knowing what I want to do and achieving what I want to do and doing it every day, I feel like that's a goal lah for me, which I'm still very far from right now. But yeah, like Chris, what about you? Because like I can see that you are really passionate about what you're doing. So like, do you see yourself doing this like for the rest of your life?
Yeah, of course, I'm indeed passionate about what I'm studying, because if not, if I'm not, it definitely means that I made a very, very bad decision, which I don't think I have. For me, I don't actually know whether or not I specifically want to go into the, like, for instance, the field of like politics, for example. Like, so I do like IR in politics. Like, do I know for a fact that I want to go into politics right after I graduate? I know for a fact that I don't want to go into it immediately. I'm actually keeping my basically my options open. Basically, like I'm absolutely cool with the fact that I might not be in this field when I first graduate, but I do know that at some point in my life, I do actually want to get involved in matters of like politics or international relations very intensely. I do later on, but at the moment right now, I'm not too concerned yet about careers. For example, where do I see myself 5 years from now? Because at the moment, I do have an inkling that I want to do a master's, for example. And if I am to do a master's, the master's would not be in the same course that I'm studying right now, not in specifically the same name. There would be similarities, of course, but it would be different. So because of that, I actually don't really know where I could be going to, because with a master's degree in hand, for example, I could be doing something completely different from what I'm doing now, if you get what I mean. Which is why I'm keeping my options wide open right now. But I can tell you for a fact that I do actually want to get into like politics, something like that later on in life. In what form, I don't know. But this is also, I obviously also have to consider other things. For example, like Sam mentioned the idea of like, earning, for instance, like having a target to earn like 5 figures by this certain age. Like I would want to reach that target as well. But I don't know whether this should be a source of worry for me, that I don't know how am I supposed to reach that target, but I do have that aim. So I think I'm still in the process in deciding what that aim is. But am I passionate with what I do? Absolutely, yes. So in this way, I would say that perhaps I'm a bit fetus as well to talk about this, because I'm not particularly sure yet, but I do have some convictions, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Just like you mentioned about doing a master's, right? So actually, um, I I am in an integrated master's program right now, and I
Mm-hmm.
recently, like a few months ago, I thought of doing a PhD, and I actually that is where I'm heading towards now. And to be honest, like I would never even have thought of that if it wasn't for the society that I'm involved in, that I was involved
Mm-hmm.
in, which is MBIOS, right, Malaysian Bioscience Scholars. Because from my experience from there, I realized that PhD is not as far, like not as hard to something not as hard to do as I thought it was, because like from our community and bios we have a lot of PhD students, and that's where I realized that okay, maybe it's something I can do. So like maybe now we can touch a bit on like societies and how it affects our choices and our career path, right?
Correct.
I think Sam, you talked a bit about creating your own startup. So does that goal come from your experience in IQ?
Yeah, so I think before I
Mm-hmm.
go into that, maybe I'll give an introduction of
Sure.
iCube. So iCube basically is a student organization which aims to foster entrepreneurship and encourage innovation amongst Malaysian students
Mm-hmm.
in like I think now it's all across the globe. All across the globe. Yeah, cut away all the fancy words. It's basically we're helping students with startup ideas. Yeah, like with ideas and turning them into startups, essentially by linking them back
Mm-hmm.
to the resources we have back in Malaysia. Um, I think yes and no. Because for me specifically, I think it like being in a student organization in iCube specifically changed my mindset. Changed my
Mm-hmm.
mindset a lot to be more problem solving, to be more reactive. In that
Mm.
sense, entrepreneur, that kind of thing. Yeah, which is why I say like I will only build my own startup if I found a problem that I'm genuinely like passionate enough to to go and solve. Like, cause right now it's not like I joined iCube, I love startups, therefore I must build my own startup, that sort of thing. But I think for me it's a more problem based approach. Yeah, to that.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, but I would say like joining iCube, it really changed my mindset on a lot of things and to view things from different angles lah. Like not just being an executioner, but being a strategist in that sense also. Yeah.
Mm. So for okay, so maybe you can go back to Chris, right? For
Mm-hmm.
politics. So
Of
like I'm
course.
aware right now you are part of SIGAN, which is like sort of a politics society kind of. Is it a
Okay.
politics society?
A lot of the students there have something to do with politics, yes, but it is not exclusively that. It's more of
Mm-mm.
like global affairs kind of things.
Okay, okay. So like because like so for example, there are many Malaysian students doing engineering. So you have like YME, like you have a group of
Okay.
Malaysian students doing engineering. But in terms of like politics and global affairs, we don't really see that right now. I think SIGAN is like one of the first societies that that has like a politics and global affairs side to it. So do you
Mm-hmm.
feel like this lack of community in politics students in Malaysia, does it feel like it disadvantaged you in any way? And do you feel like SIGAN is something that will really bring people from your course forward? Or is it like not really
Mm-hmm.
not a big deal to you?
Okay, so actually, I wasn't expecting this question, so I'll try to articulate as I can. So basically, how SIGAN came to being is like Southeast Asia Global Affairs Network. It came to being by our very good friend Nick, basically, in which he was actually inspired by this society because he saw things like Malaysian youth engineers, and BIOS, for example, because that is where you guys have a sense of community, right? Like basically,
Mm,
Malaysians studying a similar course, coming together, having discussions and all that. And you are absolutely right that this community, this sense of community lacks in Malaysia, which is why he actually wanted to initiate something like that, which he has, and it is growing. And it'd be very good if, like, if we could reach more people and, like, you guys follow it, for instance. But that is why actually we started this organization. Has it disadvantaged me in any way? And actually I was actually like really supportive of forming this, despite the fact that it would mean more workload for myself and also like my friends, who are part of the society in their final year. because we do need this sense of community. I do think that it is about time right now, especially like the volatility that's going on in Malaysia. As people who follow what's happening in Malaysia is probably aware. So this is actually very important. But has it disadvantaged me in many ways? Not very much actually, but I do feel a certain disadvantage to a certain extent when because this is a field that not many Malaysians I know, for example, dive in, for instance, because a lot of people I know, for example, they are very interested in like politics, current affairs, and all that, but they don't necessarily are passionate enough about it to actually study it for like 3 years or even more. So I do face the disadvantage and also slight annoyance at times when people ask me questions like what you're going to do and stuff like that, because frankly speaking, I don't really have an answer to it, and I feel like I'm being doubted and that question is being put towards in front of me. So I do in that regard feel a bit disadvantaged, but it hasn't really affected who I am or what I wanted to do, because if I were to consider these disadvantages, I probably would have done, say, law, for example, which was one of my other options. So yeah.
So following up to what you said, right, Chris? You said that politics. Even though a lot of people are interested in like politics and global affairs, not many people choose it as a degree choice. So what made you choose it as your degree choice? And were the people around you, for example, your parents, supportive towards it?
This is actually a very interesting question, because ever since as a child, I always thought I'd be a doctor or a dentist, but obviously that changed the moment I started doing science in school. But when I was like 12, I think, I always thought that I would actually do law, you see, because I was always told that, I mean, I speak fairly well, I suppose. I argue fairly much. I used to, I think.
Debater, right?
I used to be in debate every now and then. So I was always told that, and I'm good in like English and Malay, so a lot of people said that I should be a lawyer, and I actually really liked it. I like watching like law series and all that. Like I really enjoyed it. But then then I started to move. I started seeing a lot about like Malaysian politics, for example. That I was very unhappy about a lot of things. I was very pissed at a lot of things, and I still am, even though after 2018 I still am. And that was when I started to actually read more about global affairs and all that. But I always still said that, I wanted to do law, because that was always my dream. And then one day I started talking, it was one of my teachers actually. I was quite close to this teacher. And like, because my mom was a teacher in the school as well, so my mom was quite close to her as well, the other teacher. She actually said that, so her daughter is now, she actually said that, I was 16 actually, said that her daughter is doing this course called IR and Politics, International Relations and Politics and History, at the University of Nottingham, Malaysia. That's when I was just like, that's actually very interesting. So I started to read about it. I realized that, while I was interested in law, for example, law doesn't really touch on the aspects of things that like politics touches on. So politics is actually it's a very wide-ranging thing. It encompasses law, it encompasses like economics, philosophy, and all that. And the reason why it's so wide-ranging is because this is how the world functions, this is how society and governments function. And I realized that I wanted to actually get as much as I can, if you get what I mean. And this is why I decided to do international relations and politics, because I felt like I could get the most of everything that is needed for how governments function, how the world functions, basically. And it was mostly down to interest, I guess. I knew what I was getting into, in the sense that there is no specific pathway, for example. So like engineers, most people would become engineers, right? Those who study engineering, for instance. Those who do law would most likely become lawyers, for example. So there is this degree of uncertainty for me in the course, but I still did it because of my passion of wanting to know more about it and basically get whatever I can. But the thing is, was my family supportive? Absolutely. Like, I do not have the most freedom in Malaysia to do what I want to do. But in terms of, like I said earlier on at the start of the podcast, my parents were very supportive of the course. In fact, they actually never heard about this course before. I mean, my dad did politics as a minor when he was in university. It was just a minor in his degree. But my mom and my dad, like, they never expected their children to do things like that. But they were very supportive of it. My whole family was generally very supportive. And this is one of the rare instances in which I would say that my family was more supportive than a lot of my friends, if you get what I mean. Because a lot of my friends were just like, why this, why that? Which I still get questions like that, which is absolutely justified. But I say that my parents were very supportive of it. So in that regard, I had full freedom from my family to do what I want, because my parents' mantra was always that, we will pay for your education, just make sure you study hard, you do well, and don't disappoint us. And so I just want to cover it. So this can lead us to another question then. What about you guys then? Your choice of degree, for instance, like for Sam, software engineering, and for you, biomedical science, Mel. How did you guys make the decision? Was it guided by your parents? Because I have heard instances in which I have friends, for example, that three of them, for example. So she said something like, my mom said my elder sister will be a doctor, so she went into medicine, and then the second one has to be a lawyer, so she did law, and then she was like, I have to do I don't know, accounting or something like that, so I'm going to be an accountant, for example. And so how's it for you guys, or was it guided by passion or some other way?
I think, okay, maybe I can talk about I actually really relate with Chris, because I feel like biomedical science, although it is a bit more popular than like IR and politics, right? It's not the most popular. For example, in my course, I am the only Malaysian in my year, at least in my batch lah. So and I do question my degree choice a lot as well, because I'm not like super sure that I want to do research, I want to do bio, especially after my third year, after I scored like shit results for my first year, right? I was like, oh, what am I doing? Like, I don't even, do I really like bio, biology and all that? But I think throughout the years, like throughout my second year and then my third year, my interest in my course has grown. It's more of like, I did biomedical science because it's not like I really, really liked it. It's just like, I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else. So so like, I think, which brings Sam into the conversation, right? Do you do, because we know that engineering is probably the most famous choice of course among Malaysians. Do you do it because you really wanted to do it, or is it just because like, everyone else is doing it, like you can't go wrong? So what are your thoughts on that?
To be honest, right, I can't remember how I chose my degree. But I would think that it had something to do with my subject combination in A level. So like I did maths, chem, physics. So like that's like the dead on engineer subject choice, right? Yeah, like I can tell you like 90% of those people who did this subject combination definitely did engineering. But I don't even know why I chose software engineering now, if you think of it. Because like prior to going to software engineering, right, like I remember thinking to myself like, after paying for my visa and everything, I just sat down to myself like, actually, what the heck is software engineering? But I guess it worked out very well for me, right? Like not really as well, more on that later. But like I think my parents didn't really have an objection. I think my dad was very happy because like at one point when I was applying UCAS, right, like then like I was just talking to him, that I just like, software engineering and everything. Then my dad was actually like, software engineering, actually that's very, very good. Like can see he can see like, like there's a lot of options like moving forward from that. So like I don't think my dad had a specific, like my parents had a objection towards what I wanted to study. But I think I think like for myself, like it was very like casual, like they were very casual about it. But I would understand that if I told them like, I wanted to study politics or like event management, that sort of thing, right? Like they would be a bit more scared like I think they would be more hesitant. But I think like engineering is a very safe route, right? Like, and my dad's an engineer also, so like he would know that it's a safe route. So I think like there wasn't any objection to it.
I think the point that's made over here is that it's very important that obviously we have discussions with family, friends, our elders and all that about what we want to do. But I think it's good that at least most of us actually, we did have some degree of control, I guess, over what we're going to do. If you get what I mean, because I think that it would be very, very painful and difficult if you're forced to do something you don't like to do. If you get what I mean. So and I'm actually quite like intrigued by your answer actually, that like how you actually chose software engineering, because just out of random, like some time ago, I was just looking at the number of engineering courses in Sheffield. There's actually so many branches of engineering. So I've always had this question on how people actually select, and it's good and it's nice to hear that actually it is quite, I should say, it sounds kind of like how I decided to do my course, like, so it seems good that most people are quite simple about it, like they can just choose. You get what I mean?
Yeah. I think to add on to that, right, like we live in, I feel like we live in an age, right, like in an era where I think honestly your course doesn't matter. Like generally speaking, because I know people who like during MCO, like they were just born and then like they started picking up like coding courses. And I met a friend recently and now he completely pivoted his career and he's a front end developer now. Yeah. So like I would like to think that that's the same for other courses. Maybe not mechanical engineering and all, where you need actual certifications and the knowledge to do so. But like I've heard of a lot of history students and all, like then they go into consultancy, that sort of thing. So like in some sense, right, like what we study doesn't really matter, like the degree per se. Yeah, it's just a paperweight.
A lot of people view degrees as something like, including myself, as like something. It is an opportunity for you to basically broaden your horizons in the past 3 years, basically for you to become more mature and all that. Because it is true. Like, I think that a lot of people will be very surprised to hear that, like in the UK, for instance, in consultancy and like banking and all that, you would think that a lot of the people who are in those courses actually did something like, for instance, in banks, for example, we would automatically assume that a lot of these people did like, econs, accounting, finance and stuff like that, business. But you would actually be very surprised to see that a lot of people who did like history, for example, end up in like consultancy and like banking, for instance, or even degrees like geography and all that basically has nothing much to do with like banking, for example. So I think that it's more of like basically not necessarily your degree, but more of I think how you portray yourself in interviews, for instance, whether you are willing to learn. If you get what I mean.
Correct.
Because I think that companies now are willing to basically risk hiring to somebody who might not be very well versed in that particular area if they show like the ability to basically learn and pick up with an open mind, I suppose. But I could be wrong about that. But based on what I see, like a lot of people, I know a number of people who basically are doing very well, who are thriving in areas that they basically didn't study. So yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Adding on to that, like there's a lot of talk now that like we live in such a digital age, right? That like honestly, and like if you think about it, engineering itself specifically, right? I can safely say that more than half of the people who study engineering that I know are in engineering roles right now. Like definitely, I can say that wholeheartedly. So yeah, and I think like with regards to what you just said, right? Like interviewers, I would say definitely I do agree. I think there's a more importance on work ethic and like proactiveness, because these are things that cannot be taught, you see. But like learning how to code, learning subject matters, and like learning how things work and all that can be easily taught like in a matter of months, right? But work ethic and like proactive mindset and like just like generally being a great team player, right, is not something that can be easily taught, right? And that takes years and years of experience and exposure to be able to do that properly. Yeah.
I think just to like wrap it up, right? So like I think we can ask Sam like where did your degree bring you? Like how was your journey towards like, this whole software engineering thing? Where do you see yourself in the future? I'm not sure if we probably already touched a bit on that, or maybe you can elaborate it more.
Okay, my software engineering degree, like first year itself, I wanted to quit. Like it was like, cause right, like day in, day out, right? If you think about it, you blow your brains out, right? Just to make a few lines of code to work, like software engineering is not an easy thing. I get what people say, or you can learn it easily, that sort of thing. Yeah, definitely. But like you blow your brains out every day. Like it's something that I cannot do, and I do not want to do, right? So but I think I'm grateful, right? Like back, like if you ask me during uni, right, I would tell everybody, wow, like choosing software engineering, right, is the stupidest thing I've done. I regret it so much. But coming out of it now, right, like I really see how important and how like it added a lot of value to my career prospects, right? Cause like for me itself, for me myself, right, I want to go into more business oriented roles. So like going into more business oriented roles, more sales kind of roles, right, and having the tech aspect to it, right, that you can do so much more things. You can automate processes. You essentially, like what I said just now, you're the bridge between two separate functions, and that's how you create value for yourself. Yeah. So I definitely, now coming out of it, I don't regret. I was stressful, but yeah, I think, not sure if that exactly answers your question.
No,
Yeah,
definitely it
yeah.
does. I think it actually does. Yeah.
That's my journey. I would say.
Yeah, I think Chris and I can probably answer that next year. So yeah, I think
Yeah. Took a while before we actually did.
yeah, we got nothing to say now. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I think just to wrap it up, I think it has been a very interesting conversation. We completely like pivoted from our original idea, which was really new. We have never done that before. I thought it was really interesting. So yeah, I think
Being agile.
Being agile, yeah. Quick to act.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you so much, Sam, for being a part of this. And yeah, we hope to have you again in our next episode. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for watching, and
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, see you next episode.